My name's Nat. I'm the head of community at Exceptional Individuals, and I deliver these webinars every single week to help people who think differently to the majority to understand their brains, to support the what we call bottom spikes, and to utilize the top spikes, understanding the three-dimensional view that is our brains. We often talk about autism and entry-level positions because statistically, you're more likely to be unemployed if you're autistic, which sucks. That being said, some of us do make it a bit higher, which is great. We often have to do masking where we have to fake it till we make it, but you don't really make it. You fake it until you tolerate the norms that we are having to mask. There's a lot to look at, to be honest, when it comes to autism and leadership. How can we be a leader while also not slowly gaining momentum to eventual burnout? There's a bit of a cycle of autistic burnout, and it never ends. It's exhausting, so we want to avoid that. That is what we are going to be looking at, if successful today, and my God, I plan to be. Today, we are focusing on autism. A lot of this stuff would work in the others, but I say it's been tailor-made for autism. I'd say autism have a lot of similarities in some of the things we're talking about today. If you have one, you're very likely to have another. They go hand in hand because they're not really that different. What is it? What is a couple of genes amongst friends? Not much. Here's me, autistic leader. I run my own company. I'm in the leadership team at EI, do TED Talks. I talk all the time, which is great. And people think, oh, now it's so easy for you. No, it's not. I just got a good poker face. Underneath, I'm always jittering. I genuinely get physically sick before I do talks, workshops, but I have found ways of minimizing it and finding ways which are less intimidating. Don't get wrong, far among friends here. Autism in leadership. It is there. Actually, people think it's always rare. Autism leadership is not rare. What's rare is people speaking openly about it. You'll have lots of people who are at the top of their game, then they'll talk about their autism, but they don't talk about it before then. Controversial fella, but let's look at Elon Musk. He is arguably one of the most successful people on the planet. He only last year or so came out as autistic Asperger's. Why did he wait so long? Because when you're at the top of your game, you have that privilege where it's not going to do any damage at that point. But a lot of us, it's a bit of a gamble. Do we tell people? Do we not? Do we keep it to ourselves? It's not important. It affects me a little bit. There's so many things going through our head. Sam says, I'm a late diagnosed or the ADHDer. That's a little combo of autism ADHD. I'm in Australia. Great to have you. I don't work. I got autistic burnout about 4 years ago. Sorry to hear about that. I never recovered. I'm much more high need now and much more visibly autistic. Do you know what, Sam? I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot of people think that you either are or you aren't, and you are always autistic, but it can fluctuate depending on what life throws at you. I don't mind being more obvious autistic, but it's annoying how much more people struggle to understand me. My understanding of them hasn't been impacted as much. It makes a lot of sense because since your burnout, essentially the mask has fallen off. It's not that you become worse at integrating with individuals. It's that the way you show it is less adaptable to what they perceive as normal. Kirsty says, late recognition here. Hard to tell people when I've worked with them and masked for 10 years. Yeah, Kirsty, I get that because people are like, wasn't a problem last year or the year before. And that's not the best approach because people think that you're making excuses. In an ideal world, you'd feel comfortable to talk about how your brain works before trouble. But a lot of us tend to use it as the emergency button. Things are going bad. Autism. I get that. Particularly difficult in companies that you've been there a lot. A book I'm going to be drawing a lot of inspiration from today is called Neuroscience for Leadership. While it's not aimed at autism per se, it does have a lot of real interesting nuggets in there in terms of how our brain is adapted for leadership. And a lot of them link quite well with autism. Adapted, but not straight from the horse's mouth. First question to get the ball rolling. Where's the line between thoughts, feeling, and physical sensations like cold, hunger, or fatigue? Essentially, where does all the processing start and where does it end? Is there a cutoff point? The answer is there's no cutoff point. Our whole body is used. The brain alone is not able to have feelings of hunger and thought and cold. We often put all the emphasis on one area, but it's the entire body. Because we autistic people process things differently, understanding that our mental health and our physical health are completely connected our brain, someone might put it there, for instance, our brain actually goes down there, but then it's our spinal cord, and then everything is completely interconnected. Yeah, I'm sorry, Sarah, I tricked you, my bad. I do that a lot. Next question is, you personally, left brainer, right brainer? How do you think? Are you more analytical, left brain, or more creative, right brain? Or did I try and trick you again? Yeah, completely BS, by the way. We are not left-brained. We are not right-brained. We are just brained. This is a real big misconception. There are different parts of the brain which are used for communication or more for central, but the brain has what we call plasticity, which means it grows, it molds, it adapts. The brain uses every part of it in order to operate. There's this myth that we only use 10% of our brain and we've got some untapped potential. No, we use the whole brain. We are just not quite there in science to understand how it all fits together. This little image shows you how, yes, we do have two hemispheres, but very connected. It's why, for instance, people with dyspraxia or struggle with writing or coordination, the two hemispheres aren't always communicating as effectively. If that wasn't needed, then it wouldn't matter. People who have brain injuries, another fun fact, you won't know this, our left arm is controlled by our right hemisphere predominantly, and our right one, left one, so it all crosses over. No, there is no such thing as being a right brain or left brain thinker. That is a complete myth that people have been spewing all over the place for ages. I've already probably given this away, but are the brain hemispheres connected? Yes or no? They aren't cut in half. They have a bit of a crinkle, but they're absolutely connected. There are some people who have seizures and they do have the brain essentially cut in half, and one part of the brain then does become more dominant. It is possible, but not in the way that people typically talk about it. Thoughts on the theory that our two hemispheres don't connect as well for autistics due to a thinner corpus callosum? I can't comment, Sam, because when I look at all the brain studies, they look the same to me. There are slight differences between grey matter and white matter, but honestly, more info is needed. I see what you mean. This section could be thinner, but they are very much joined. Yeah, there's a little bit of a ridge, but there's a lot of transfer here. Absolutely connected, but in those with autism, it is a bit different. Do we really know everything yet? No, we do not. But when you think about how quick you are at processing, information going back, forth, left, up, down, if there is a slight delay, it does have a knock-on effect. I wonder why the brain is made that way. It is a good question. Why is the brain made that way? Do you know, I don't know the answer to that. I suppose no one really does, but I imagine there are some good theories about why the brain did develop in two hemispheres. Our brain is a relatively new thing. Essentially, the spinal cord and this bit in the middle is really old. That comes from our most basic functions: breathe, food, eat, drive. But this big part on the outside is relatively new. So our brain is still very much developing. This one, you might think I'm going off from a bit of a tangent. Work with me here. Are finance and marketing teams isolated from each other? In the workplace, are they completely separate? This is a good analogy of how your brain works. I don't know about you, but I used to think they're completely separate. Finance, all the way over there. They don't have a direct relation to what I do on a day-to-day. They just keep to their own bubble. However, without the finance team, I do not work. Without me, the finance team has nothing to do. They do have a knock-on effect. They don't always work side by side, but they are integral to each other. That is the same with the brain, because while the prefrontal cortex is really important when it comes to communication in those with autism, the brain is needed in order to make that happen, even though they might not be joined directly or they might not be the key player. Everything is interconnected. Because of autism, the deficits or places that have underdeveloped or developed differently, everything has a knock-on effect. Is why it's nearly impossible to find out exactly what autism is, because it's not one thing. Autism is lots of little genes, which are really common. Needle in a haystack much, but every bit of that hay is integral to that stack of hay. The analogy went off the rails a little bit there, but I hope you get the gist. Here is a picture of the brain. I don't know what type of view this is in, but as you can see, everything is interconnected. There are some parts which are like highways. There's the express route, but ultimately everything can get to everywhere. And with autism, our brains are connected a little bit different. It's not something you can visibly see. It's probably too microscopic, but our connections are slightly different. That's normally where the communication difficulties happen. It's not that our brains are wrong, but it's because they aren't wired in the same way that neurotypicals' brains are. Because neurotypical, the dominant form of brain processing, for some reason, we normally have to cater towards that. For our brain to get to the same place that theirs got to, we normally have to take a side road. Side roads take longer. They wear your tires down a bit more because they're bumpy. They're not normally as smooth. But the pros of it, you get a different perspective. You can see how there are definitely downsides of being autistic in a neurotypical world, but there are also a lot of benefits as well. Sometimes, though, those benefits aren't always as clear as the disadvantages. But that's life, isn't it? If you ask a British person how they're doing, they say, oh, it's not so bad, rather than saying, oh, it's good. We tend to be a bit negative to begin with, and we reevaluate. Hardwired, unlike mental stuff that can change through neuroplasticity. Yes, fam, it is hardwired. Like, everything can change through neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity doesn't stop you from being autistic, but it might change the connections. Again, bit of a nerdy analogy, but if any of you like Harry Potter and Hogwarts, the stairs change in Hogwarts all the time. You know how the stairs are always moving around? It doesn't change the building remains the same. It's just how easy it is for the students to get places changes. That's like it is for autism. Is this universal, and does everyone have the same structure? Everyone has more or less the same structure, but every single brain on the planet is different. There's more connections in the brain than there are stars in the Milky Way. It is ridiculous. More or less, but definitely different. Maria says, also, I think neurodivergents should be the majority because they execute more, and neurodivergence can help them see things different and leading. I do think there's a place for all types of thinking. I'm not trying to be like Planet of the Apes here, where there's one dominant form which will overtake then. There's a war coming. No, both types of brains are very useful. On this, in terms of where your brain naturally gravitates towards, where you've got the strongest highways, which thinking styles resonate with you? I want you to think about which of these do you think you have strong activity. For instance, all of you have emotions, all of you have motivations, all of you have intuition, but maybe you'll be more naturally suited towards some than others. Yes, Maria, we need each other as an ecosystem. It's like biodiversity. We need all the plants. This is quite useful because we often speak about spiky profiles, right? Some people are good all-rounders, other people are more specialists. Leaders typically are really specialists in some areas. The areas that autistic people tend to be specialists in often completely is the flip side of their neurotypical peers. Their leadership style is going to look quite jarring to what people are used to. We've got logic, creativity, and all of these are going to be different for everyone. Those with autism typically do gravitate towards more of the logical side. And that's something to do with how the brain processes information. You've got something called top-down processing, which is typically done for those who are not autistic, where you get the bigger picture and then you get down to the detail. But those with autism do bottom-up processing, when you start with them real detail and then branch out to the bigger picture. It's just a different way of going. Bob says, can ADHD and autism be enhanced, changed by trauma? You can get what you might call acquired neurodivergence through head injuries, acquired dyslexia, acquired dyspraxia. It's not actually autism or dyspraxia, but it has a lot of the same characteristics. You would still receive similar support. Whether or not it can be enhanced, there has been some examples where people have their characteristics become more pronounced, but I think it's more related to the masking side of things, how obvious it is. It doesn't necessarily change. There isn't enough data to say, to be honest. It's interesting. Oh, psychological trait? I think it comes down to masking more than anything. Remember, you don't suddenly stop being autistic or become autistic. It's more that how your brain processes it and deals with the difference is either completely covered or seen. Yeah, PTSD. It's a tough question. I would say maybe, probably, but we don't know. Here's another interesting one. For autistic individuals, stress signals can appear differently. We all get stressed, but those with autism, let's say we get stressed a little bit more, or we get stressed differently. I want you to tell me how you experience it. Left if it's untrue, right if it's true. Do you experience chest pains when you get stressed? Do you have that butterfly feeling when you get stressed? Do you get goosebumps when you get stressed? Do you sweat a lot when you get stressed? The point of this is that we all show stress differently. But what is stress? Stress is a natural, healthy thing that we need. Stress is our body's way of saying, you need to do something, stop the brakes, or you are going to burn out. You're going to have a mental breakdown. Your chest pains again, it's maybe the heart or the butterflies. These are all perfectly natural because it's just like a red light, get help. Those with autism might feel these more regular because when you are continuously trying to, your body isn't in its natural calm atmosphere. This is why you're more likely to get burnt out over time because you're putting more wear and tear. Use another car analogy, I guess it'd be like using flat tires. Yeah, the car can still move, but it's going to get more damaged or it's going to wear out a lot sooner. This image is a banker because bankers have a ridiculously high rate of heart attacks because of all the stress over a long period of time. Their body is often going through all these symptoms and characteristics and eventually drop dead. I don't want to scare you. Hopefully, none of you are going to drop dead any moment soon. But if we do not listen to our body's natural reactions to stress, then trouble is going to happen eventually. With autism, we have heightened senses. While you should absolutely listen to your body, sometimes the body might overanalyze or overinterpret stress factors, which other people wouldn't necessarily think was that big of a deal. This is why some of the most common medication for autism is anti-anxiety pills, because it helps lower the threshold. To give you another analogy, imagine you had a fire alarm, right? Fire alarms are good. Without the fire alarm, the house burns down and you'll die. But if the fire alarm was overly sensitive and every time you cooked it went, you get really fed up with it. So you want something that is the right level of sensitivity where it works when you need it to, but it's not firing on all cylinders when you don't need it to. Maria says, this is what happened to me. I ignored my life and all my symptoms until I got diagnosed with fibro. I can't pronounce that. Yeah, it is a very vicious circle, but very super common with ADHD. They really are. Think if your brain is continuously being clocked like a high-end computer, yeah, you're going to get some superpowers out of it sometimes, but it is going to have more wear and tear. So you do have to put extra effort into looking after yourself. Moving aside from stress, let's look at the other factor, motivation. What motivates you and demotivates you? What is your carrot on a string that gets you going? That is another thing with autism. We tend to be a little bit more blunt, or we're not that good, in my opinion, faking interest. Bob says neuroplasticity through PTSD. Yeah. Post-traumatic stress can absolutely change how your brain is wired. Not always for the better. The way I understand it is that our brains have loads of wiring, right? When you are stressed, you release cortisol or the stress hormone. A little bit is fine. It's like saying, yeah, you should do something about this. But if you are stressed all the time, think of it like flooding your brain and short-circuiting the equipment or rusting all the bolts in your head. Too much of a particular emotion, which ultimately is different chemical balances in the brain, is going to have a negative effect. I feel my condition has almost switched severity as I got older and have been through tough times, more ADHD as a kid and more ASD now. Again, just to clarify, it's not that you become more or less a one, but in terms of how it presents. For instance, ADHD, we often consider to be hyperactivity, but in adults, it's more restlessness. It's not that you've changed diagnosis, it's just how it presents itself is different. Bob, don't want a panic attack, no. Butterflies are when I'm excited or when I have to experience excitement. That's the thing. Excitement and fear are very close. Going on a roller coaster is fun, but it's triggering our fear reflex. We got cats motivate me or demotivate me. It's unclear. Motivate, natural, relaxing music, socializing, exploration of tech, pleasure, neuroscience, creative solutions, people, achieving, coffee, so many interesting ones. Essentially, a lot of you know what works. Lindsay says cats very much motivate. Me too. They fill me with so much joy and analogies. It's a really cruel world. But as you see, a lot of us will know what works and what doesn't work. When people get depressed and down, knowing that North Star, that thing that guides you, is going to be invaluable. Another thing to keep in mind is emotional intelligence. This is like which people say, oh, people with autism don't have empathy. Lies. We do have empathy. We experience it differently. The same as way we experience self-awareness differently. Our motivations are different. We have all these things. We do have motivation. We do have self-regulation. We do have social skills, but they look very different. We may not realize that ourselves. I think it's really important to check in with yourself. I've got some questions for you. Do you know the last time you cried? Are you experiencing the full bandwidth of human emotions. If you don't exercise a certain part of your body, it gets weak. If you don't exercise your emotional intelligence, it can get difficult to re-regulate. Often at work, when we're stressed and we get home, we don't want to think about it, but you do have to process it and pull it apart before you're able to move on. What would your younger self think of you? That's a deep question, but it is one that can help improve your emotional intelligence. What work-life balance means to you? Do you ever ask yourself, what is it that you actually want? How do you actually go about it? Or do you keep your head down and just hope that it's going to get better one day? These are rhetorical questions. You don't have to answer them, but they're definitely ones that I think we should ask ourselves. Yes, we communicate different, and I read that between neurodivergent people, they communicate better and also communicate neurotypicals. Between the two groups, there are actually misinterpretations. Do you know what, Ruth? I think that's interesting. I do also struggle communicating with neurodivergent people personally. The reason why is that we're just so different. You've got the norm, which is like a massive group. Then think of us not as another secondary group, but again, lots of individual people that are very different. It can be difficult being a neurodivergent manager and managing someone who is neurodivergent, which I have done many times, is still really challenging. Let's have a little look at our intuition. When do we know when it's the right time to do something? With your gut feeling. I think intuition is something which we tend to suppress quite a lot, because people often make us assume that it's wrong or not right and get that, oh, I don't know. Our gut feeling is something which is very powerful. We know how the brain does a lot of processing without us even being conscious. So when we think gut feeling, it's not this fairy tale thing. It's a real thing. It works. There's an old expression, cells that fire together, wire together. Remember when I say gut feeling, right? We're not necessarily talking about our gut. It's that feeling that you know this is right. Just a little thank you. Most of the time, I feel like an imposter and I get mocked or put down, thus making the struggle very isolating. This kind of group makes me remember all the advantages and how great it can be. Do you know what? That's exactly why we do this. Our brains are fantastic. Maria says this is what happened to me. I ignored all my life symptoms till I was diagnosed. Okay, we've got that. My gut is almost always spot on. But because I notice patterns before others, especially in behavior, I'm told I'm crazy. That is a real common thing with those who are neurodivergent. We know what's right and wrong, but being able to articulate it is another real challenge. I know with me, I'm always like, let's just do this, guys. When people don't follow me along for the journey, I'm like, why are people not following me? I struggle to communicate it in a way that everyone understands. Let's have a little look at logic and how that relates to autism leadership. On here, I want you to rank your skills. 5 out of 5 if you're an amazing critical thinker, or 1 if you're terrible at data analytics. Those with autism tend to be more analytical. Analytical doesn't mean that you're amazing at computers. It doesn't mean that you're amazing at maths. It means that the building blocks which those skills have, you will have a really strong foundation just because your brain naturally gravitates towards the detail. Remember how I said bottom-up processing? I would say for those of you who are still aiming to get to a leadership position, I think it's very difficult for entry-level individuals because you are expected to be a jack of all trades and great at everything. When you get into a more leadership position, being able to delegate and to specialize in one area is more accepted and more appreciated. But you do need to have a really strong team behind you. I think we work better in teams. The reason why some of us think we do not work good in teams is due to the communication barrier. But when it comes to balancing out our spikes and low spikes, teamwork is a dream work. We've got a lot of data analysts in the group. You all proved my point that collaboration is low. And I think that comes down to communication. There's normally a mismatch. We have our gut feeling, but we're not able to translate that gut feeling. This is all making complete sense to a lot of you, which is, I guess, nice to hear, but also it can be a bit of a kicker. When you know you've got these amazing skills, but you might not feel utilized in the workplace due to some barrier. Communication is also low. This is actually what I expect, to be honest. This lines up with a lot of other individuals who are autistic. If anything, maybe it might make you feel that you're not alone. This isn't a you thing. This is a wider societal thing. Sam says all people get annoyed and then they just want to get it in and do the work themselves. That is also another thing. We want people to work with us for our strengths rather than us always trying to compensate. I'm terrible at sports, right? I have dyspraxia. People say, nah, if you practice, you'll get better. I will get better. I'll probably never be as good as someone who doesn't have dyspraxia. I would ask myself, do I want to put so much effort into becoming better at something I'll never be the best at? Or would I rather put that same amount of energy into a skill which I know I could really thrive and really add value? There's not a right or wrong answer to that, because for some people, they like the challenge and they like pushing themselves. But asking yourself what is important to you, I think, is the more important takeaway. Vic says, I have a leadership style that allows others to support their own solutions, and we think through it together. Some folk bounce off and don't like it, but it works for some. I like that. It's more collaborative approach and more autonomy. A lot of people say, hey, this is the task I want you to do. This is how I want you to do it. But a good leader is saying, hey, this is a task that needs doing. This is why it needs to be done. I trust you to find your own way of doing it. It's different leadership's approach. I do think autistic individuals can be amazing leaders because we do have that extra level of empathy. We've been through the hard times. We've seen firsthand how it shouldn't be done. On to creativity. This is an area we conventionally excel in. They say that creativity is just logical thinking for the future. I think this is interesting, right? Because a lot of us who are autistic really resonate with being very analytical thinkers and very logical. But logic and creativity are really not that different. Creativity is thinking of things that do not currently exist. For instance, when the Wright brothers were trying to fly, they weren't analytical. They were creative. They were artists. They were explorationists, adventurers. Only once their creativity got adopted and it emerged into something, now we see being an engineer or a pilot as a very logical profession. I like this because it always reminds me that when I'm innovating and coming up with ideas, yeah, people might see this as nonsense or not valuable, but it's only because we haven't got there yet. Da Vinci must have been seen as a complete madman back in his day. Nowadays, we look at him as one of the smartest people that ever lived. We are creative, but I want to make it clear that when people say neurodivergent people are creative, it doesn't mean we're good at arts and crafts. It means that we are good at thinking beyond the norm plane, no pun intended. Imagine if we had people who were just scared of creating and trying. We would never have planes today. We would have cars or everything, to be honest. Did Da Vinci have ADHD? We don't know. However, he had a lot of characteristics that were associated with it. He didn't finish it. I think Mona Lisa looks perfectly fine. Apparently someone rubbed off her eyebrows a while back, but still a good painting. We spoke about all the different ways that people think and how they can be advantageous for those with autism and how they can also be challenging for those with autism. I want you to think about how much brain processing power do you personally put into these areas? For instance, do you put a lot of mental energy into reading body language or presenting yourself in a certain way? Do you put a lot of energy into interpersonal relationships and emotions? Intuition? What you'll typically see is those who are neurotypical be quite balanced, where those who are neural put more cognitive resources into one area. Right now, everyone says they put equal amount in every area. I think that's a lie. I think we all have a different distribution. Now we're getting a little bit more honest. Yes, but how many millions of years it took us to get here? Yeah, it takes a while. That is very true. Body language, personal skills. I imagine that if everyone was like, I don't know, 25% on all of these, yes, it would be easier for the world to get along, but we wouldn't have many exceptional people in certain areas and it would stifle innovation. For instance, some people here might be amazingly great at intuition or logical thinking, but that might mean that they might struggle with other areas like out-of-the-box solutions. For example, the key takeaway is that it is a good thing to have all your eggs in one basket, because there are going to be other people who have a more balanced approach. You might make the next aeroplane or you might make the next spork. No one wanted it, but you've got to try and fail. And I think a lot of us have been conditioned to not try. When we try and we fail, people shame us. You only get celebrated, you only get called a genius when that eventually pays off. But a lot of these things take a long time to execute. They didn't make the aeroplane overnight. It took a lifetime of trial and error. A great quote from Toffler, who wrote a book called Future Shock. A little bit old now, but actually it's got some really good gems in it. He said, literature of the 21st century will not be those who can't read and write, but those who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. This fills me with great hope why we are the future of organizations, workplace, and leadership positions. What the quote is saying is If you can read and write, if you can do the things that everyone else can do, that isn't the future. Things like AI, things like robot, automation, they're going to be doing all those things. But what can we do that robots can't currently do? We can't readapt. Our plasticity, our ability to reform, pivot, change directions is a skill set that a lot of us have become experts in without even realizing. While burnout does increase with the more pivoting we do, the right amount of balance can actually put us in a place which I honestly believe employers are going to be really wanting from now onwards, really. Yeah, we've got to think critically. Absolutely agree. I think reevaluate how your differences are a benefit to society rather than how they disadvantage you. We have been made to feel like we are a hindrance, but times are changing. And I think the future really is neurodivergent. I think we're on the dawn or something. Another book that I recommend is called Social by Matthew D. Lieberman. This talks about how our brains are all connected. When your brain isn't working the way you imagined, that's not because there's anything wrong with it, but it's more about how people expect it to work. Maybe if we had different expectations on how our brain is naturally wired, it might open us up to more innovative play. Apparently, 1% of leaders score high in both analytical and empathetic skills. That's really interesting. 1% of leaders are good at everything. The vast majority of leaders are specialists. They are people who are really good in one area. Having someone who is a jack of all trades, someone who can do everything, who is great at motivating a team and also getting a financial forecast out, these are very rare people. We are always looking up to these role models who may be that one, but that's not representative of the wider population. Apparently, analytical people have a 14% chance of being seen as leaders. A lot of us said we were analytical. We might be leaders, but people don't see a leader in us. Empathetic people only have a 12% chance of being seen as a leader. But yet, if you have both, there's a 72% chance. It's really interesting that only 1% of people are likely to be seen as a leader. And I think that's more a reflection on what we have created, this unattainable leader position. The average person or the person, a leader looks very different. This book I found quite motivating, to be honest. You know, that my form of leadership is perfectly fine. You know how you go on Instagram and everyone looks ridiculously attractive and you're like, oh, I'm so ugly. No, Instagram is fake. It is made to create the optimal idea of what a person's body looks like. The same is true with leadership. We have got a fake view of what leaders look like because that's what sells. But I want us to fit into the conventional molds. But if we know being very analytical and empathetic at the same time creates a perceived good leader, why do you think that autistic people struggle with this more balanced approach? Why do we do one thing really well and it might struggle with the other? Black and white thinking and seeing something objectively rather than subject makes it difficult to understand others' perspectives. Made differently and have different priorities and different interests. Yeah, both of them are true. I find with autism, a lot of the time it's about an OT where we experience things higher than other people might. We tend to gravitate toward doing one thing and doing it really well to avoid being overwhelmed. We might listen to music again and again because we find that repetition comforting. We might have headphones on in order to dampen the sound so we're not overstimulated. You might have glasses which reduce the sunlight, which can make things more manageable. We might have routines which you do every single day. There are a lot of comfort in the patterns of doing something. And this is our body and our brain's way of coping with a world which is very overwhelming. We also got, I don't think we have issues with empathy. We struggle with sympathy. Just to clarify, I'm not saying we struggle with empathy. I say we struggle with doing both at the same time. We can be very empathetic. It's just when we combine them. Because we hyperfocus, it's only one side and it's difficult to shift the attention. Yes, shifting is a very key word here. Empathy takes me dangerously close to social interaction and working the social dynamics. What you're saying here is you could do it, but then that opens the floodgates to other things which you might not be mentally prepared for. Ultimately, it comes down to multitasking or task switching. Task switching is a myth, right? People who say they can multitask, lies. Our brain doesn't multitask. What it does, think of it like a little lever. We switch really fast. You do one task, then you swap the other task. Imagine you're reading a book and watching TV. You're not doing them at the same time. You're reading a book, you're watching TV, and you end up doing both tasks half as good. Those with autism typically will struggle with multitasking, but it means they put all their energy into the task they are doing in hand and tend to be really good at it. Once again, better at being a specialist than a generalist. If you're looking for a generalist leader, then maybe that's not the type of leader that you'd be most suited for. You'd be much better at a more detailed orientated leader. Another thing is part of the actual makeup of autism. We all know about social communication being a challenge, but also the repetitive element. There's comfort in similar. Quick question. Do you think you can multitask? Yes or no? Again, I'm sure some of you think you can. It's more about how quick your brain is able to shift gears. Is your brain in an old manual car or is it like an automatic? As we know, a lot of us have co-occurring conditions, often dyslexia or dyspraxia, and they do struggle with rapid processing and essentially shifting. That is where some of the challenges can kick in. When we do shift gear, our brain essentially changes the blood flow. Remember how I told you how the whole body is connected? We think it's all in the brain. No, the whole body. When we are changing our social skills, or if we've got our body language, or if we're doing the logical thinking, our body will literally send more blood to certain areas. The healthier your body is, the easier blood flows, and the quicker you will be able to shift gears. You can't change the fact that you're neurodivergent, and neither should you want to, but you can definitely improve areas you struggle in by looking after the body. It really does all fit in together. It is one thing that has motivated me to at least try to do exercise. Think of multitasking like being on a seesaw, right? You can't be up and down at the same time. You have to be one or the other. That all is multitasking. You're either doing one task or the other task. It is impossible to do both at the same time. Those with autism, their seesaw is just a little bit slower. That might sound like a negative, but it means they spend longer doing one task and doing it really well than wasting their time swapping all the time. When we struggle to switch tasks effectively, even though that's not how we're naturally dispositioned, we get more stressed. It's how we deal with stress. Because everything might take us slightly longer to do that additional processing, we get more stress and it builds up to this kind of monster that we can't control. I'm surprised a lot of you oh, how I'm currently, that's good. I get really stressed sometimes. I want you to put a little pin on the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that experiences physical pain. What you'll realize is that physical pain and stress, basically the same thing. When we are stressed, it is not made up. When people say, oh, you shouldn't be stressed, it's a physical response. Your body is telling you something is not right. You really need to listen to your brain. This isn't something that you should ignore. Around this area, remember this is switched. The brain we showed you previously, the prefrontal cortex, it was the other way around. Maybe a slightly unfair image. Stress relates to a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is higher in those with autism due to stress sensitivities. Because we are more sensitive to environmental factors, we're going to have more cortisol. And more cortisol, more stress. You can see we're up against it, basically. We've got all these are true, by the way, I think. Levels rise at dawn and should remain low. If your cortisol doesn't go down, maybe you want to have a more natural light. Align yourself more up with the day and night cycle. If you have low levels, less symptoms of stress, high levels lead to illness. Yeah, that's definitely true. Stress can make you put on weight. That's also true. That's another example of how stress is real, is not made up. When we put on weight, it's our body shutting down processes in order to put more fuel into an area that is trying to compensate for. When you're freezing, the first thing to go will be your arms and your legs because your brain knows that it needs to protect the vital organs. The same with blood flow. It will put more blood in some areas, which takes it away from other areas. Or you go for a run because your body still needs to run. Yes, absolutely, Sam, that fight or flight response. The next question is cortisol. We've got to keep an eye on it, okay? How do we know? This goes back to the thing about monitoring our body's response. If you have sleep issues, headaches, fatigue, craving, anxiety, these are all signs that you might have high cortisol. Why I wanted to talk about this stuff today is to really hit home the fact that there's nothing wrong with you. Everything that you experience is a natural part of your body communicating with you. It can't communicate by picking up the old phone. It has to do it in an alternative way. A lot of you can see if these are quite high, you probably have quite high cortisol. And that might be something that you want to look at or find ways of coping. It could be medication or it could be more holistic. Holistic ways, there are the few. You could go down the medical approach. You could go down exercise, which can help reduce it. Just talking to a friend can also help reduce stress. Journaling, yoga, many things work. When we think of what is well-being, we typically just think of one narrow focus. But look at the biosocial model. Essentially, good psychology. Are you mentally okay at the moment? Social. Do you have a good network? Also biological. I'll be honest with you, as those of autism, biologically, we are probably going to have higher cortisol and we're probably going to struggle with stress management. We can't help that. But what we can help is our social interactions and our psychology to a certain extent. If we get a good balance, ultimately, some say that equals well-being. I want you to rank your emotions by intensity. So which one of these do you feel more strong? Each emotion does correspond with a different hormone or chemical in the brain. These are all things which we can help balance through healthy eating, exercise. It sounds like generic advice, but when you start to understand how it all interplays together, maybe we try to take it a little bit more serious. Anger, fear. I watched Inside Out 2 recently. It's all right. It's basically the first film, but it was still enjoyable. Bob says minor things could be overwhelming, yet in a severe situation, I can remain calm. That's, again, interesting. We all experience emotionally. Society has what we deem to be a response to some. And again, autism's different. Essentially, you get out what you put in. Your mum probably said back in the day, you are what you eat. It really is true. You put in good humor, you keep things simple and streamlined, you make sure you have enough oxygen, have good fuel, you rest a lot. This is going to put the brain in the most optimal position to allow you to be your best and improve your emotional regulation, bias suppression, task switching. You can't stop being autistic, but what you can do is make some of the challenges less draining. That's ultimately what we're trying to do. We're trying to give you the largest amount of fuel for the longest amount of time to allow you to get through the day and be the best version that you possibly can do. A great analogy is like a bucket of water, right? If you are filling the bucket up continuously, but there's holes, it's never going to get full. You wake up with a limited bucket of cognitive resources. So you have so much you could do in a day. There is a limit to what you can do. Every time you do an activity, you're taking water out, right? You're taking a sip. Stress is like having a leaky bucket. The more stressed you are, the less cognitive resources you will have. Those who are autistic are more likely to be stressed because they are essentially swimming upstream. Now you know why we're stressed, and we know that things like meditation, mindfulness, well-being can help fill up some of those gaps. You are more likely to be stressed, but it doesn't mean that you have to be stressed. Mindfulness is something which I struggle with, to be honest, but if you can get the hang of it, I think it can be really beneficial. But I would recommend, for instance, finding something which maybe have been catered towards those who are autistic. I did CBT recently, cognitive behavioral therapy. To me, I struggled with it, but when I adjusted it to be more my style, I found it worked a lot better for me. Some study on mindfulness has found that it does actually help. It does lower cortisol. Honestly, 12 minutes a day, apparently, is all it takes to reduce your stress levels. If you think it's all made up and hobbledehoy, it does have scientific backing. Just spend a few minutes being peaceful and relaxed. Easier said than done, but it makes a big difference. I really encourage you to go forth today and commit to one brain boosting change, whether or not that's exercise, healthy eating, meditation. Just do one thing that could have a positive impact on your brain. I encourage you to support autistic colleagues and support yourself. We are up against it, but if we collaboratively talk about it, like we have done today, we've created a community where we didn't feel like the other and we felt normal. It can make a huge difference to our overall well-being. If you know a little bit of neuroscience and put it into work, I know as myself, who's very analytical, I only believe things when I know the science backs it up. People have been telling me to eat healthy and to exercise my whole life. But it wasn't until I really understood why that made a difference when I start to actually adopt. If you found today interesting, the research, the book Future, all of these I recommend. You can check them out when they're on the recording, but the more you know about the brain, the more you realize we're not that different. The difference we do have is what makes us amazing. But unless you understand that for yourself, you always think this is just some motivational mumbo jumbo. The science checks out. If you are neurodivergent and in the UK and looking for help, I always recommend our workplace needs assessment. As an organization, it's one of our key things we do, and we can get you support in the workplace. Long story short, if you're in the UK, if you're employed, we can get you free help. This can help with mentoring, coaching, well-being. We can help give you strategies to help reduce your cortisol. definitely check it out on our website. Any last questions? Do you provide job aids or just coaching? Sarah, we do offer job aids. You have to get a good justification for them, but they are possible. What about people looking to start self-employed? Yep, self-employment does count. Here's all our webinars, lots of lovely videos on neuroscience. Here are our contact details should you want to contact. My name's Nat, so it's just nat@exceptionalindividuals.com. If you want to email me personally, I'll be more than happy to invite you to any events and things along those lines. Cheers, everyone. Really appreciate you all today. Bye.